Good evening, and welcome everyone to the August 28th, 2013 business meeting of Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees. And I would ask that all of you please stand for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we will have our mission statement read, please.
The mission of Richmond Community Schools is to graduate students who are literate, responsible, proficient in state and national standards, and college and career ready.
Thank you, Aaron. And Dixie, the vision, please.
Our board vision, by 2020, Richmond Community Schools will be the highest performing school system in East Central Indiana.
Thank you. And we truly believe that. And we're working toward that, I might add. And now we are at a place in our agenda where we entertain public commentary. And we have two times set aside for this, one at the beginning and then one closer to the end of our meeting. And so I am going to ask if anyone is here to speak to us.
We have
Rick.
We have one.
Rick.
A house.
Okay, Rick, please come forward. Glad to have you.
Thank you. It's like old times. Only I'm on the wrong side of the table.
Or the right side,
Or the right side.
Depends on
Your perspective.
That's exactly right.
Well, I'm here on behalf of Every Child Can Read and the Third Grade Academy. And I'm here to thank Richmond Community Schools and the school board for their support and the partnership that they had this past summer with Third Grade Academy. This past week, we sent out our report card to the community. As 15 years ago, as a member of the community before my school board experience, we always heard about we need a report card. Well, the Third Grade Academy has a report card. We've reported every year, and this is our 6th year. And I think this year was equally good as the other years in the past. Couple things that I'll suggest as a part of the report card. Of course, this year was a little different year in that we incorporated technology in what we did. And that was an important part. Certainly the testing was done, most of the testing, not all, but most of it was done electronically. It speeded up the process and certainly didn't take as much time as it has in the past. There was some very good news. Of the 57, we had 57, well, let me go back. We had 99 students enrolled. Our goal was always 100. And as is typical, not all of the students always attend after they've enrolled, but 90 students attended. We had 94.3% attendance rate, which was our best one in 6 years. There were 61 students who qualified for the iRead 3 retest. Of that numbers, 27 of those students had retest exemptions, or good cause exemptions, as we call it. Of the 34 who did not, who took the test, all but 6 passed. And the most interesting thing to me, of those who had good cause exemptions of the 27, 10 of those passed the iRead 3 retest. So that was exciting news. And to me, the best part, and the part I think you all should celebrate, and I put it in blue on the front. But as a result, I'm going to read this. As a result of the intense focus on reading from both Richmond Community Schools and the Third Grade Academy, following the iRead 3 retest, 92% of Richmond students passed and are considered, at least in our opinion, reading at grade level. And that's that's quite an accomplishment, I think, for Richmond Community Schools and for Third Grade Academy. And we're proud to be a part of that, and I think you should be as well. I also want to thank all of our supporters, and on the back of the report, you'll see the names of the multiple numbers of supporters. And certainly, most of you know that Third Grade Academy occurs in different venues. We are not typically in four-wall schools, and we have to thank all of those folks, too. We have 10 different venues. They're scattered all over Richmond. That's quite a logistics. Yeah, it's a nightmare. Getting students from one place to another, especially when we bring them all to one place. We provide them breakfast, and we also provide them lunch, and that's always interesting. But we're proud of the accomplishments that our teachers have done. We believe we had some of the strongest teachers we have ever had. The good news is many of the teachers come back. They want to teach in the program, and we appreciate that, and we like that as well. We also want to thank those community folks who contributed over $80,000 to the effort. As most of you know, it's about 45% RCS as a partner, and the rest of the money all comes from the community. And about April 1st, I really start sweating because we have to figure out how we're going to raise $80,000. Doing that every year is it's always difficult, but we always manage to get it done too. So we appreciate the partnership. I brought several reports, and you can pass those around and read those. But lastly, and certainly not least, Richmond Community Schools provided Kirsten Phillips to us this year as our administrator. She did a great job. You got a top-notch teacher, and it would be a shame to take her out of the classroom, but one of these days I have a feeling that's going to happen. The really good news is she's going to do it again next year for us. So
Already?
we're
That's
pleased
good.
with that. So I thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But
Well, I do have a question. You know, our numbers of qualified students decreased this year,
they certainly
and
did.
that's a good thing.
That's a
great thing.
Yeah, we're anxious for the day you put us out of business.
Well, my question was, you have plans for next year. What if our numbers should fall below 40, 30? Let's say that we had only 25 students. Would you still operate the program?
We would expect to operate. I think we all know that even though we only had approximately 60 students, we still had 99 students enrolled in the program because your teachers identified students who were still probably at risk and needed the help in the reading area. And I suspect there will always be a group there. We didn't have I-STEP scores, as you all know, to look at. But I think we all know that the teachers can identify students who they think ought to be in the third grade academy. As the numbers of third graders changes, I think that may open up an opportunity to look at students at a younger level.
That would be
And I know
nice.
many of you think that is something that we ought to consider.
Yeah, I think that would be
And we
good.
have talked about that every year, actually. And as your numbers decrease, then maybe that'll be the opportunity to move that level down and start looking at students going into the third grade as opposed to those coming out. So,
Rick, Suzanne Morse would be proud.
you know, we ought to call Susan.
Yeah, we do too.
Yeah, I'll let you take care of that.
Okay, I will.
For those of you who don't know, Suzanne Morse was the motivator that started all this process. When she came to an educational forum back in 2007, I think it was, and said, when we were talking about graduation rates, and if you want to know what your graduation rates are going to be, look at your third graders. And if they're not reading at grade level, they're not going to be graduating from high school. That was the focus that we took as Third Grade Academy, and obviously Richmond Community Schools has taken that focus as well. So it's been a joint effort, and I think we all ought to be proud of what we've been able
And
to
I
accomplish.
will send that.
I just
Suzanne.
want to say that I had the opportunity to attend your celebration, and so many proud students and so many proud parents. And so certainly we want to thank all of the students and the parents for.
You know, that has been the part that we were all kind of surprised at. We hear stories about these parents they're not concerned or they don't care about these kids. But when those kids accomplish something, they're there and they're applauding. And that's exciting. That's exciting. If you haven't been to a graduation, you should come because everybody's standing, clapping, and the kids are coming in.
Lots of applauding.
It is. It is. It's great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well,
Rick, would you stay up there for just a second? I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that he's here. To our Chinese students, I would like for you to meet Mr. Ahaus, Rick Ahaus. He used to be a school board member, and I don't know that he knows this, but he's one of the reasons that you are here. Several years ago, when he was on the school board, he emphasized to me the importance of building connections with China. Now, Mr. Ahaus, at that time, managed a family-owned business industry here in Richmond. His son and son-in-law do that now. But at that point, he was coming into contact with many Chinese business people and talked to me about the importance of developing those connections for the economic well-being of Richmond and China. So before he leaves tonight, I wanted to make sure that you understood that we have many people in Richmond who are very supportive and interested in developing connections between your country and ours. And this is one of the gentlemen here in Richmond. To some degree, you owe your welcome to him. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. And now we are ready for to celebrate the joy of learning.
Mrs. Morgeson, it's my pleasure to introduce to you a very select group of individuals, but I'm going to let some other special people do that. I would like for Ray Wolpe, our principal, to come forward, and Misty Hollis, who has directed some of these efforts, and Jessica Yu, who has worked with us through China Connection.
Good evening, Board. It's a pleasure to be here, and my time's going to be very short. I want to let Jessica and Ray spend most of the time, and then hopefully the students will have a chance to at least introduce themselves to you. But this has been, as you know, a journey of love and a lot of work with a lot of partners to have the students that are here. And before that we focus on the students, I do want to take a moment and thank our host families. All together, we're having 16 to 17 families open up their home to host our students. And it takes a lot for them to do that. They're being a part of their life. They're making sure they're getting to school and getting home and having other activities and being a part of our school life. So it takes a lot of work on their part, and I just want to publicly thank them for that as well. But I also know they're getting attached to these students. So when they depart next Thursday, it will be interesting to see. I'll have a lot of Kleenexes for people, so to say goodbye. But it has really been amazing to watch our high school students interact with the Chinese students and vice versa. And I'm going to leave the rest of this to Ray and to Mrs. Wolpe and to Jessica.
Thank you, Misty, and thank you, Misty, for all of your hard work and organization. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you tonight, and it's a pleasure to share with you, on behalf of the students and staff at Richmond High School, the excitement that has been generated by our visiting Chinese students. They have truly become a part of our RHS family.
immediately. It was like they're part of our student body, and we are really going to miss them, and we hope that you all come back next year and join us. But like I said before, we are so grateful to Jessica for making this happen, and the way that our students, I couldn't be prouder of our students and staff at Richmond High School, and the addition of more cultural diversity within Richmond High School, and that's what we're looking at, and that's what we value, and that is what we treasure. So thank you. And Jessica.
It's an honor to be here today. Thank you. With less than a year, we start our Chinese program here, and we send our educator delegation to China at June. We send our teacher team to China at July, and we have our elementary schools group visitors at the same month, August. And also we have our big groups here stay longer, up to 4 weeks in U.S. So all the activities, we showed our educators how professional, how love their student, love their job, to show their proficiency to the Chinese educators within their trip. Also, we make our elementary school reading program well known in China, south of China now. They want to learn our secret. And also, meanwhile, they learn how we teamwork together through the program. That surprised them a lot. We have our students here. We roaming around the whole town, here and there. Everybody knows we're here. Mm-hmm. So, all about this, I want to say, thank you is not a word I can thank enough. I'm not hesitant to say we got a huge success here with all your help, all the people in the town, with all your heart here. I love Richmond. Now I'm so proud of Richmond. We're not only got a success, and also we got bright future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica, would you invite the students to come up and come around the podium with
Sure.
you?
So our team, please, it's our show time.
It's our show time.
Come over.
Tell them to smile. They're on TV.
Please smile. We're on the TV. Yeah. Okay. Let's start from our director of the program, Ms. Hui, please.
会广记
Wang Juanhui, please come forward, please, everybody.
If they could step up to the podium so that we can make sure that they're heard and seen.
会广记会 you can call me 会
Hi.
As you students come up, would you give your American name and your Chinese name, if you have two?
Okay, hello. My Chinese name is Shi Yun, and my English name is Jane. And I'm very happy I can be here to experience the American class and make friends and know a lot of new things. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anne, and my Chinese name is Bai Yunyi. And these days I contact with American teacher, student, and host family. And I really have many jubilant memories here. So I'm really thank you, and that's all.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. My Chinese name is Lou Yingxue. My English name is Lavender. I'm also glad to be here, and I want to thank to my host family. I'm so lucky that I can have a so good family, and I think when I leave there, I will miss them very much. Thank you.
Hi, my Chinese name is Ouyang Chenxi. My English name is Aiko, and I want to say that I love Richmond. That's all. Thank you.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Mercy. My Chinese name is Chen Yujia. I'm very happy to be here these days. And thanks to my host family, thanks to you, and thanks to my friends. Thank you.
Well, my name is Lian Yaling, and my English name is Moore. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm appreciate to be here. Thanks.
My Chinese name is You Qi, and my English name is Peter. And we have spent 1.5 weeks here, and I really enjoying the school life here. Thank you.
For me, my English name is Cody. You can call me English name in Chinese school because they all call my English name in my school. And I think I'm very glad to stand here, and nice to meet you, guys. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie, and my Chinese name is Zhang Chennan. You can just call me Pumpkin because my friends all call me like that. Yeah, and I had a great time in Richmond and with my host family. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my Chinese name is Zhang Xiao and my English name is Zoe. I'm very glad to study here, and I want to thank my host family. They are very nice to me, and thank Richmond. That's all. Thank you.
My name is Anna, and my Chinese name is Yang Xinyi. And I want to say thanks to my host family, and Brian and Susan. Yeah, and I want to thank my study partner, Sarah. And I love Richmond. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Polly, and my Chinese name is Jin Chen Zhi. I think at there, the air are very fresh, and I really love there. And I have seen a deer at there, so I think it's very amazing. So the nature makes me inspirational because I love writing. And at this school, I think the students are very like to asking questions. I really want to know the new things, so they also ask me many questions about Chinese. So I think it's very interesting. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My Chinese name is Wu Haosen, and my English name is Carl. It's my honor to study there and to excavate the advanced learning strategy there. And I was appreciate to my host family, Miss Laurie. She treated me as her son. So thanks everybody there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff. My English name is Chen Qingyi. Yes! That's why I love this country. So I regarded my Chinese name as my English name. Sorry. Okay. I really appreciate for your work. That's because your hard work to make our group as a truth. We came here and we stay here for a long time, and I love this country, and I really appreciate for my host family, Marsha Fisher. He's really, as I regard her as my mom. So thank you all, and though we still have a 1 week stay here, but maybe it's a very good time to say this. Thank you all. Thanks. Many thanks.
Hi, I'm Eric, and my Chinese name is Wu Songbo. I learned a lot about the American from the Richmond Community School and my host family, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sheldon. My Chinese name is Wang Mingyuan. First, it's an honor to be here with the school's board, and here I want to thank my
my two host family, Tom Turley's family, and Brown's family, Tim Brown and Key Brown. They treated me as their son, as they said. And I also want to thank my study partner, Parker Swain. He's the best student I've ever seen. That's all. Thank you.
And he sings and dances.
Hello, my name's Max, and my Chinese name is Guo Fubing. I really enjoyed the experience to be in Richmond. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gary. My Chinese name is Xia Zhonghao. The last name Xia in Chinese just means summer, so you can remember me by this sentence: "A summer come Richmond at summer."
Oh, good. Did he get a high five there? All right.
Okay, I'm the last one. My English name is Leo. Somebody call me Neo when they first hear my name because my pronunciation not very good, I think. And my Chinese name is Li Mingjie. I think I know that Chinese pronunciation might be difficult to Americans. Yeah. And I'm really appreciate that I have the chance to go to American at Richmond. I think it's a very good chance to explore the difference between China and America. I love my family here. Yes, my family, not my host family. Yeah. I love nature and I love America. Thank you.
It's my turn. My name is Phoebe. My Chinese name is Wang Bei. I'm their English teachers, so I think it's a very good chance for us to learn from you. So thank you very much for guiding us in their life or study. And so I am Deputy Director of our AP Center in our school, and Hui is our Director in our school. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to add, you've probably said something about their study partners. The high school, with Carrie Ann Polk-Meek, Celeste Johnson, and Mrs. Wolpe's help, they actually matched high school students up with our guests. And so they were able to be with them in the classrooms, walk through the hallways, have lunch with them, and get to know our students really well. So that's who they were referring to. And I guess we need to make sure we do thank those students as well for giving up their time as well. Thank you. Good job, everybody.
So he's a year-round student. He's here forever. Really? This one here?
Yeah.
We have had so many people in Richmond open their businesses also to our visitors. And yesterday they had an opportunity to visit Reed Hospital. And during lunch I had an opportunity to spend some time with them. We don't have enough time this evening to go into all the conversation that we had yesterday. We really didn't have ample time yesterday. But one of the observations that our students have made is that there is an emphasis on the individual here, an emphasis on students. We question students, we talk to students in a way that they've not necessarily experienced. It's not necessarily the way of the Chinese educational process. And it was an interesting conversation that we had with one of our doctors from Reed yesterday, who is of Chinese origin. And he talked to the students and made the comment that one of the things he appreciates about America is that we are willing to admit our mistakes and learn from our errors. And he said that's not necessarily something that you find every place where he's been. So it was a great conversation, and the only critical remarks I heard yesterday, which I thought were very, very well placed, was that we take for granted our natural resources so often in the Midwest especially, water, electricity, coal, air, and that was noted by some of our students, and I thought that was a good lesson for some of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Look, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming and for those nice comments. And your families, I think, are going to miss you, and it sounds like you're also going to miss them when you leave. So we are pleased that you have had a wonderful experience. And come back next year. We'll look for you. And we understand if you want to do something else this evening besides sit in a board meeting. So you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go find adventure adventures.
Very nice way of saying that. The last boy who spoke was the one who plays the piano so beautifully.
It was a little late for some reason. That's a huge late.
5 or 6 years, I can say a few.
We are now ready for our public hearing.
And this is the public hearing for our Capital Projects Fund Bus Replacement Plan and 2014 budgets. Mr. Coddington, would you like to help us through this hearing?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Barf. We continue the budget process. We've been talking about it since June. We've presented the budgets. We've made no changes to the budgets. The capital projects plan has been advertised in the Palladium per statute, and tonight we would entertain any public questions that we have to the budget. And I believe the first one we do is our CPF plan. So does anyone have any questions on the CPF plan?
Open the meeting.
Okay, then
Aaron, do you?
I just wanted to know if there was a protocol, did we need to go and close and go into the public? I didn't know.
No. I mean, I think implicit in Mr. Coddington's presentation is an invitation for board questions for the public, so feel free to, if you have any question, it's not just the public's. Sometimes the questions of the board may enlighten the public too.
I'd entertain any questions. The bus replacement plan, it's a 12-year plan, as we've talked about. 60 buses divided by 12 is 5 a year, and we will ask the public to support 5 buses this year. And the last questions that I would entertain is to the general fund budget. It's up about $300,000. Keeping in mind that we advertise high, you can never raise a budget, but you can always lower it. So we anticipate the budget to come in much lower in the end than what has been advertised. And I would entertain any budgets on any questions on the general fund.
Questions by board members?
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, we are ready to close our public hearing. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Jeff Slifer makes the motion, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are ready for reports and discussion topics.
The first discussion topic is the 2013-14 strategic plan draft. And if you recall, the board has adopted a set of goals. The job of the school administration is to develop a strategic plan to get to those goals and to meet those goals. And what we have presented to the board is a very, very rough draft. We are still working on some of the, especially the new pieces. We're working on the strategies. What you have, though, is a beginning of that, And I would anticipate at the next meeting, we should be ready to present a final copy. One of the pieces that will be very important would be the measurables on the pathways of education that we have talked about. And that's generating some good conversation. The measurables for that will be very interesting. We're looking at measurables in almost all these new areas that would involve some student input. And while we recognize that a simple survey of yes or no is not going to be ample, and sometimes a survey is very difficult to capture deeper ideas, we know that somehow we need to assess those. So that's what we'll be presenting, but this was too soon for us to be at the point of presenting that. The pieces that you had from the previous plan regarding student achievement, attendance, and so on will be updated. We will not begin anew. We'll start where we left off. And once we know what our ISTEP scores are, we'll be able to really build some of that achievement piece. But what we'll be doing, last year, if you recall, we set 2020 as our goal, and we built a trajectory and designed our objectives against that trajectory. In some cases, we exceeded the trajectory. So it's not that we're going to fall back to where we anticipated we would be. We will start where we left off. In most cases, that's at a higher plane than we might have had down there. Questions?
Pat?
As I was looking at some of your action steps, on one particular, and that was the strategy to develop a comprehensive implementation plan for a one-to-one initiative, I would just like to encourage one of the action steps to be looking at the liability, legal, when you've got a professional development, you have financial plan, but what I heard at the summer ISBA meeting was that we really need to be prepared for the legal ramifications, the liability, and all of those things. And I didn't see that, and that really, before we approve anything like that, it would really need to be clearly the rules for use, whether it's in school, out of school, and all of that. I mean,
It's big.
Big.
We may even have to have some policy reconstruction
Exactly,
on that.
exactly.
And
And I
you'll
thought worthy of a separate action step in your strategic plan.
There's a lot more on that one, and I'm not even so sure you're going to see one-to-one. It's more digital conversion.
Yeah.
That's the term that I think we're going to be talking about,
Yeah.
because one-to-one implies
everybody gets one.
That's right, and that's not necessarily the case. But digital conversion is the term that we've seen, that we've read about, which probably states what we're more likely to try to pursue, and that is that every student has some kind of familiarity and capacity to use, to learn, to access digital technology.
Yeah.
So that's probably what you'll see. But you're absolutely right. The operational piece and the policy piece weren't even factored in at this point.
Right. Well, I just didn't want us to go merrily skipping along without thinking about that, because what I heard this summer was a little bit scary. You know, access and blocks and locks and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the good thing is that there are a lot of people who have pioneered this for us.
Yes.
And we will be able to learn from them.
That's right.
So.
And Julie Slavin has she has policy ready for that, that she's ready to share with those of us who even think we want to go in that direction. But they were recommending, the take-home piece is really difficult. Okay, well, I read when I was a little surprised to read that, having some of the other conversations. Okay, that's all.
Well, I think also, to go along with that, when you talk about the take-home piece, there has to be expectations for parents to oversee some of that also.
And that's where some of the liability came in, and the various problems that school systems were having was with the parents, because they were using them, or, anyway.
Well, or not overseeing appropriately.
Using them, too.
Yeah.
There will be more conversation because we're in such a preliminary piece with this plan. At least you see what the template looks like and how we're constructing it.
So, let me ask, so are we on target with our strategic plan, or are we still a little behind as far as getting the strategies in place so that we are moving along, so that everybody knows what the expectations are?
Well, it would have been nice to have everything in place before school started, strategies and all. But in another sense, this may work out better because the strategies would have been developed while school was not in session. This way, we're able to bring more of our stakeholders, internal stakeholders, together as we're moving forward on the strategy development. And we're working through the discussion process. And in some cases, we're building small task forces to help us along the way.
Okay, so then how do we go about ensuring that perhaps when we begin the next school year, we are able to start?
Well, keep in mind, one of the problems this year was the I-STEP debacle. We kept thinking that we would have a conclusion so that we would have something to build upon, and that was supposed to happen in May. We probably need to begin the strategic or the goal-setting process just as quickly as we can when those scores are in. We understand that that will be in May next year.
Okay.
And so the board can start working much sooner. You simply couldn't, we finally made do with what we had available, and that's not how you wanted it, that's not how we wanted it, but next year we can begin much earlier.
Okay, I just kind of was thinking ahead.
I think that's a good
Didn't want to
thing.
think too far ahead, but
It'd be nice to have everything in place on day one. That would be the best.
well, as you're collecting data and so forth, I think that's probably would be helpful for everybody to have knowledge. Okay.
Our next presentation or report has to do on enrollment. This is not the enrollment report either. This is still preliminary, but it gets a little more specific now because school has begun. The numbers are beginning to settle. And and I've had questions raised about why are we using a format or a template that looks different from last year? And our templates are constantly evolving. In the formal report that you'll be receiving, it'll look strikingly similar to the one that you received last year after ADM. That's when the official report's made to the board. This is all preliminary. I have asked Dr. Parker, who helped us put together this template, and this template just worked for us. And that's why I'm sharing it with you. This probably will be what we'll use because it has worked so well for us. I asked her to work with Mr. Coddington's office and take last year's data and take it apart and put it into the template that has served us well this summer and the beginning of the school year. And so we do have a comparison. And you're welcome to look through and ask all kinds of questions, but I think the bottom line is what you are probably interested in. And at the bottom right-hand block on these two sheets, you'll see one number which is 4760 and one number that is 4860. And what this represents is the difference between the two enrollment figures after all the ADM type calculations are done. And what I mean by that is that we take our kindergarten numbers and we half those because we only receive a 0.5 for each of those. When you look at it, when all is said and done, and this is still preliminary, I emphasize that because we have students who come and go between now and the official count day, there is a 100 student difference between the 2 years, and that's after ADM has been factored into the calculations. So, if you were looking forward and trying to project our ADM, and the field is level, and all indications are that everything will work out the same way they did last year, then you should be able to project that your ADM, official student count, in September will be right at 100 or so greater than last year's. Sure.
We're really up in kindergartners at ESA.
That's right.
Are we doing anything to help support that kindergarten teacher?
We are, and I'll let Dr. Parker, she can tell you almost classroom for classroom what we're doing in some of these
the first thing we did
situations.
was we went over there and visited the classrooms and talked with the teachers. And they have, for now, they're using their Title I paraprofessionals to provide support in those classrooms. And in Cabinet, we did talk about that. And once our ADM figure is in and we know where we're at, we do plan to put some extra support there.
In the form of what, paraprofessionals?
Paraprofessionals. Yeah, they actually, after the first day of school, made some phone calls to some families and offered them the opportunity to transfer to other schools. And some families did take them up on that offer. But most families have made the choice to attend there, and they want to stay there. The teachers didn't want to lose children, and so they said, we'll just make this work.
Anybody else? I guess one of my concerns as I look at this is, well, first of all, I'm thrilled that we're up 100 students. That's good news. And, but as we take in our students and as we add classrooms, then I get concerned about what happens in the future. Because I know that at 2 or 3 of our schools, classrooms were added. But then it becomes a situation where what do we do next year? Because those classrooms, obviously, those students have to go into classrooms that may not be there. So I'm just looking at the big picture and how we utilize our board policy that we have set and how that's working. I think that every year we have to visit that and revisit it so that it is working to benefit what we're doing and not stand in the way of what we're doing. So, and it is board policy, so I mean, we do need to honor it. And so that's a concern I have.
Well, and I share the concern with you too, and I think the principals do as well. And the board policy is working. It is working, but we also have some other factors that are working, and that is that we have some parents who would like to see their students at particular schools, so we try to honor that. It is in that spirit of choice that we're honoring today that we find ourselves facing some imbalances in the enrollments. So you were asking what we would do in the future. In some cases, we're going to have to limit the size of incoming kindergarten classes in some of those buildings because we may not have the same capacity as we do now. As those students move forward, for example, at Elizabeth Starr Academy, it may require that for next year we have a smaller kindergarten enrollment because we're hoping that those students stay with us. Now, we also know in this community that we have some mobility issues that we have to deal with. Yeah. And what we see today may not be what we see in February or in March. Mm-hmm. And so we adapt as we go forward. But what we did like when we did our visitation was that parents and teachers alike did not want to see students going elsewhere. They felt like they could adapt and make the most of it right there, and so we do appreciate that. Nevertheless, we're looking at the future too and seeing, well, if you have 5 kindergarten classrooms in a school that was designed for 3 or 4, you're going to have larger
By first grade classes.
first grade classes and then second grade classes.
Right.
And so it does go through the system, and we recognize that.
Well, and I think that's why, because having been a teacher, that first day is bonding day. And, I mean, it truly is. And so, you know, once those students enter that classroom, they're yours. And you don't want to give them up. And so that's why I guess we need to, you know, make sure that we are consistent in what we do. And also, you brought up an interesting thought about open enrollment, because I went back to my notes when we were talking about policy 5120 and suggested, I had in my notes that we talked about open enrollment, and but weren't quite ready to make that step. But I would suggest that we have a conversation about open enrollment again, because if that's truly where we want to head as far as giving a choice, then I feel strongly that our policy needs to reflect that. And so we're kind of giving choice without having the policy that reflects that.
Well, there are absolutely, that's the case. We do have choice being made, particularly when admission's not possible into some of the schools, and there are choices available. But there are conditions that we work to honor as we go through the admissions piece. Of course, we try to give preference to the neighborhood students who are there. We try to give preference to students who have transferred in the past or who have siblings in that building. I mean, it is a very tedious balancing that we try to accomplish, and I'm not going to tell you that we get it right in every case. It's much easier to make a decision prior to the enrollment not to allow a student in there than it is once they're there asking them to accept a transfer. So we try to avoid that. But I will tell you, as hard as we may work, the mistakes do occur, and so we look at that. We have even in some of the buildings that are over their enrollment, in many cases, we still have some that ended up with some empty seats. And so in almost every school, we still have capacity, at least at some grade levels, to accept new students, which we are grateful for, because there's still that flexibility.
Well, and I would hope that we could have that conversation about our schools, and some are under-enrolled right now, and
That's right.
some are over-enrolled, and I know it's a balancing act, and, you know, perhaps we need to continue that conversation also as to how it seems as though ESA is a magnet school concept, and it seems as though our people like that concept.
I think they do.
And so that might be something that we want to emulate someplace else. And so there's just lots of things that need to be.
Well, that raises an interesting question. How many of the ESA students are there because they live in the neighborhood, and how many by choice? That would be a fact that we would need even before we had that discussion.
Well, we actually have looked at that, and the plan was always to keep it about half and half. And so that's how they ended up being over-enrolled, is because when we had the kindergarten rocks and we had pre-registration, we had the choice families show up and do the registration. And then we had the neighborhood families come, and we didn't want to turn them away. And so that's lesson learned about having maybe tentative enrollment next year and making those decisions once we look at what our numbers are.
I'm sorry, having what kind of enrollment?
Tentative enrollment.
Tentative.
So apply, and then we'll make decisions as those numbers come in so that we don't overcommit.
Well, I guess we've kind of debated this back and forth every year I've been on the board, because the problem started with Westview and its overcrowding, which is what drove the policy. And to me, I understand we don't want to turn children away, and we don't want to upset parents, and every student enrolled is important. I understand that, but also we've got to make sure that it's fair for the classroom. I mean, for the other kids in the classroom. That's the whole reason why we set the caps and the targets. And I think things could, if the communication could improve, we know if we approve 19 students at a target, and that 20th student hits that class, that building principal should know we're at number 20. Now, there may be 5 kids pre-registered, but that parent needs to be told that you're first on the waiting list, and we're not doing that.
Simple.
And then if we have 5 children enroll in that class and they don't show up, because that's the argument I hear, well, we're not sure who's going to be there. Well, at the end of that day, we should be calling those students that are enrolled. And if they don't show up tomorrow, they lose their spot. I mean, there's things that we can do if we develop the proper protocol. Because if we don't ever change the process, then we're going to have this problem every single year.
Well, what you see are some of the problems that happen even after we did days of calling to make sure that parents knew where the seats were open and that they could, in fact, transfer. I'm not sure how many students actually went through the transfer process after
We
day one.
actually, these numbers could have been much, much worse. We had the principals come together, and we spent a couple of hours going through enrollment. They made phone calls to try to confirm who was going to be there, because we wanted to do the best job we could to grant transfers before that first day of school, so students bonded with the teacher they were going to have. And so we tried the best we could to even out enrollment before school started. And so the first day of school, we knew where the problems were going to be, so we could try to address those right away. So, we probably better than, I will say last year was probably the best we've ever done because of all the work that happened as a part of the reorganization. But there were phone calls made. First of all, I personally called every family at Casey STEM Academy twice to make sure that they got enrolled. And then once we got them, the principals made phone calls to everyone's on their list to confirm, are you going to come, where there were phone calls or phone numbers. And that's where we ran into issues, because not every family had a working phone number. But we had a pretty good handle on who was going to be here before school started. So,
Is granting transfers before school starts, is that more problematic than it is than waiting until after school starts?
We granted a number before school started.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that
the policy says that we will grant them before school starts. 5120 does say we would do that. And,
But is
it's a balancing act of trying to follow policy, trying to keep within the targets and the caps, but also not wanting to lose families.
Exactly.
We don't want to turn families away. And so at some point you just say, we'll take all comers and sort it out later. I mean, we don't want to turn families away. They have options.
Well, we're not turning families away if we tell them you're on a waiting list or you're
Oh, yeah.
first.
Oh, yeah, you are.
But
They can choose to go somewhere else.
Especially if they don't pre-register. I mean, there is some responsibility on their behalf as well. And I understand this is not a perfect world, but I'm also concerned about if we have a class that's 5 or 6 students over what we feel
Don't
is
have
for the
any.
effective. I'm just saying, if we go over the enrollment, where do we break it off, and when is it not effective for the other students in the class? Because I noticed, just looking at the numbers real quick and just adding up, I noticed our pre-K has
Well,
jumped.
the pre-K numbers, you have to remember, those reflect, we have a morning and an afternoon session. We have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday through Friday. So
Right.
even though you may look like one class only has 30 slots, that class could have 40 to 50 slots.
But
So
my point was going to be is, if my math is correct real quick, our preschool students are up 73. Now, what variation that is, I'm not sure. But, I just want to make sure that, we're sending a message out into the community that we believe preschool is important and we believe full day K is important. What I don't want to do is, and we changed the preschool program from one building to go into all of the buildings. So, are we supporting the students at that level that we need to support? Because I've heard, and I haven't been around all of the buildings to see, but someone made a comment the other day that the classrooms that we gained at Charles, we lost because we expanded, Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. So did we, move some teachers back into some small rooms that we tried to move them out of? So those types of questions.
The day I was there, that was
Well,
happening.
those are the types of questions that, are we doing what's in the best interest of the child? I can understand. I don't want to turn any family away either. But at the same time, we should have the process, we debate this every year, our process should be fairly simple to follow. So, and maybe we don't want to tell a parent that they're first on the waiting list, but sometimes we have to be the bad guy and say, look, you didn't pre-register, our class is full, we'll try to get you in here, but we may not, let's not wait till 2 weeks later and figure out we got a problem. Now what are we going to do about it?
Suzanne?
I don't disagree with you. The practicalness of that, if everything were exactly neat and tidy. But I guess my thought is if we were to, or I'm assuming you are, relooking at that policy with competition in mind. So the idea that while we may have more students than what we had, than we want as far as our policy is concerned, are we asking why people are choosing certain places? We've done that before, but and the other part you can't anticipate is the ebb and flow of population, because the very school we were just talking about that was the sort of cause of that policy, now the population in that neighborhood is lower than what it has been in the last, 3-5 years?
That's our lowest percentage.
Right. So that ebb and flow, the policy's great theoretically, but I would really love for us to, and I don't know if open enrollment is the answer. I don't know if more magnets is the answer. But I do think that we have a very competitive advantage. Richmond Community Schools is very strong competitively, and so we just need to figure out how to market that so that when we say, your first choice is full, but your second choice has space, and congratulations, we have a chair for you. And I think that is where I'd like to see us go.
Well, I think that it's a very complex issue. And there's lots of information that we don't have right now. We don't know how many transfers, out of the home schools we have. I mean, there's lots of things that we don't have that we probably need to have a more thorough conversation. But, I guess I'm going to kind of play the devil's advocate here in that we talk about the competitive part, and we all realize that we are in competition to draw people, and we know that we have lots of positive things going on here to draw them, but we also need to be careful that they're not placed in a situation in a classroom where they're not getting the educational, they're not in the educational environment that we want them to be in. There's too many students, or all of the classrooms have a complexity about them also.
But I don't see that here.
Well, because the way this has been reported, we don't know how many classrooms are over the cap. What we know is the way it's reported here, it's reported by grade level, and that's not how our caps work. Our caps work, at least in our policy or in the guidelines, they're capped by classroom, not by grade level.
But the art of there's no science to this, because we always make the decision in hindsight. We make the decision with what happened last year, forgetting that kids grow. My question for us is how can we have schools that are flexible and adaptable to where the numbers are? Because we could make a decision tonight on enrollment based on where kids are right now. But that's not the reality. And we don't have the crystal ball that allows us to know where it is. I would encourage us to figure out flexibility, and that may be more magnet schools. That gives us more flexibility in that. But the answer, I don't think, is, well, parents, you can't go here, because they'll just, especially if they have means, they'll just go somewhere else. And I'm not ready to concede to send people to other places. So our challenge, and maybe the challenge to the administration, is how to figure out a flexible way of dealing with the ebb and flow of numbers, because I understand we don't want tons of people in a classroom when we made the cap for a reason, for educational reasons, but demographics don't always follow educational reasons. So how do we be flexible with that, I think, and adaptable? I think it ought to be our modus operandi. Didn't we have one of our values of being flexible in our strategic plan? Didn't we?
Open enrollment will just make the problem worse, though. I mean, so we'll definitely have to address it to become flexible, because if we want to go towards an open enrollment system.
But I'm not sure open enrollment is the equivalent of flexible. I think there are some other things that make us more flexible. But as I looked at our values, I mean, we said we wanted to be flexible and adaptable to respond.
I think this would be a great work session topic for the future.
Would you like to have one after the ADM?
After
That would be a very good idea.
But early enough so that we're not trying to make a decision
For next year.
Yeah, right before school starts next year, so that we have really time to analyze and get the information that we need and talk about it and have conversations with our community and teachers. And so I think that would be, if you would be willing to do that. Does everybody think that sounds like okay. Well, thank you for the information that and let's see if we can get another 100 students before ADM.
We have room.
Is available.
We have room.
That's right.
Seats are
Some
there.
excellent programs.
The next conversation is going to be led by the board, because it's about student involvement at the board level. And I would preface this by saying board members have been to conferences where they've actually had opportunities to meet and talk to students who sit on boards in other places throughout the country. And this has prompted some conversation before. Wouldn't necessarily be just high school students that we're talking about, but I welcome the conversation.
Well, I think this was prompted in our last issue of our board journal. There was an article in there, and they talked about student involvement at the board level, and gave a scenario or two. And I know that we have talked about this in many times and haven't really acted upon it. But Pat always reminds us with anything that we do she always asks the question, so did we get student input on this, or how do we go about getting student input? And so anyway, we need to have this conversation, and so I'm going to open it up for discussion. Pat? I won't even make her raise her hand.
Isn't that sweet of you? Thinking about this and having spent the morning with a lot of the today listening to ninth graders and to kind of being connected to some of those, the dilemma for me, and it's almost is whether you have one voice, one person sitting on a board. That doesn't seem to me to really be the way I would like to go about it. I just want to invite students. We're having more work sessions. We're having discussion sessions. There are a variety of students that could be part of those discussions if we prepare them. When you have one student, they feel as though they have to represent the whole student body, and I don't know that we get kind of the input that we would like. But I do want to hear from students, and I don't want to do it in a formal way. I mean, I'm liking our work sessions, and there are several topics that we need to look at that it would be easy to invite students, and it wouldn't hurt us to go to schools and actually have conversations with kids, because they always raise, I'm told every Sunday morning, they have lots of things they'd like for us to think about and talk about. So formalizing it concerns me a bit in terms of making them a board member. Having an advisory committee, having liaison, having something like that would make more sense to me. So I don't have an answer. I just appreciate the fact we're going to talk about and think about having the student voice represented somewhere.
Any other thoughts? Dixie?
Well, I've just always believed that empowerment of students and giving them a voice in decisions that affect them is a powerful thing to do. Yesterday, we were in a meeting about economic development, talking about how businesses need to give more internships, show kids what they do, and I think that we certainly should be a role model. Mm-hmm. So, and I agree with Pat. I don't think one person representing all as a board member, but an advisory group where students do have an avenue for their voices to be heard would be an excellent idea.
Okay, an advisory group consisting of all age levels?
Could be student council. Or
depending on the question. I think advisory councils, it should change. And I think the dress code was a really good example of, after the fact, we had some student input that made a heck of a lot of sense. And when they had some of that input, then they were more responsive, because it was easy to say, but your fellow students suggested that kind of thing, rather than a bunch of adults. So I think it depends on the question, and that probably would and should change.
I was thinking of student council in the journalism department. I mean, the reporters go around and talk to a lot about, depending on what their topics are.
Sure.
It was always kind of funny. I had two kids that went through the journalism, and I always asked them why they never went to the board meetings or why they didn't address any of the issues, and it was because it wasn't really anything that they thought about doing. It was more of being individually creative and topics that really interested them. But I would think that, especially at a high school level, I mean, from a ninth grade up, the reporters are talking to the athletes, they're talking to the academic teams, they're talking to the teachers, they're talking, I mean, they're in contact. between them and student council.
In the Keystone class, they're ready to do community service. I'm eager to hear, after they do their community service projects, some of what they think about service learning. I mean, and service learning may be something we as a board ought to be adopting for school-wide. You know, there are a number of schools who do that. The other thing that struck me about that whole magazine that talked about student involvement, there was also another article that talked about student engagement. And engaging is important. Do you engage through student involvement? When they get involved, do they become more engaged? I'm not sure which comes first, and probably you don't have to worry about which one comes first. But having them engaged in the bigger conversation would make them possibly more involved even in their own school work. What is the purpose? See, I keep asking, what do we want the outcome to be? Why do we want students involved? Our decisions frequently impact students, and shouldn't we listen to them? But I also want to raise a generation of people who are involved and responsible for citizenship.
Well, and that's what I was also thinking, is that, you know, it seems as though the way our democratic society works is through representatives. So it's not all bad to learn how to be
a representative.
A representative. And, you know, so Aaron, I'm sorry, I told you 4 people ago that you were next.
For 16 years, I've been saying we need to have some type of representation from the student body to come to us and engage in conversation on an ongoing level. And I think we all agree, and the journal agrees with that as well. The big question, I have several big questions, like, what will that look like? What type of student, okay? How many students will come? Will it be a deliberate conversation of equal understanding to know that we're not just doing this as a token effort to say that we're getting students involved with our conversation at a board level so we can say that we listen to them? Because then I go back again to how many will be present with us? We're 7, they're 1,500. And if we have 3 or 4 students, you know, you look at that ratio, are those 3 or 4 students really going to have the pulse of the conversation of what their needs or what they feel like their thoughts are as a student body to give us direction as to the decisions that we make? Or are we going to have 1 or 2 people who represent just a faction of that, and then we get back to the point of there are a few who are making decisions for a few, but not a few making the decisions for all of us? And I want to make sure that, first of all, I think this is a discussion that the student body needs to be having as well in regards to who they want to be their representatives, who is going to be, or how many of them are going to best speak out as representatives for the needs of the student body, who can also come with a deliberate conversation with us to give us directive, because in the end, I don't want any student feeling apprehensive about being a part of this, because once again they feel, well, I'm just there, I said what I had to say, but they're not going to listen to me. And if we're going to do this, it has got to be very deliberate in making sure that we're not only listening to you, we're going to act upon your suggestions. We have proven that over the last 4 or 5 years when we've had our public engagement meetings with people, teachers, you know, business leaders, you know, parents in these, and it has stemmed a lot of the new policy. It stemmed the directions in which we went with schools, or the closing down or keeping open of schools. We have got to be as deliberate with receiving and accepting and acting out on that information with those students. So that's my big concern at this point. Not a token effort, pardon that expression, to say we heard from students. I want to make sure we hear from all, you know, through how many or whoever the representatives are going to be, and act on it diligently.
And it may not just be high school students.
That's exactly
true.
right.
We need to be working with our younger students in leadership, and so I think that we have to, that those are things that we have to figure out. And did you, by chance, have you, or are you going to have a conversation with the administration about the student leadership piece, or the?
We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, but what I'd like to toss out for just some thought is maybe you need to start small. And your goals lend themselves to some interesting conversation among kids. Your pathways. We've talked about having that students will be able to identify or demonstrate some awareness of the pathways that you've talked about. What if we focus our conversation this year with kids on development of our own awareness through their eyes of the pathways? We might want to talk to some intermediate students about their primary experience, to some high school students about the intermediate experience, and then some recent graduates about the high school experience. I don't know, that it's something to think about that would structure your conversation.
That's why it came up the last time, remember, because we were talking about pathways and that makes a lot of sense, and it's almost like focus groups. And what I also know about students is to call them here. First of all, we're fairly intimidating, and formidable.
But your work sessions
Our
are
work
very
sessions are
informal, and you do get a lot of input from.
And that's
the time of those might be difficult for some kids.
And maybe they should be through the day.
And I really like the idea of the work session, with the students, and if it could be worked out that our work session is going to take place, on what would be normally a fourth period or a fifth period, but have those students with the excuse permission, to take part in it. I think that again would show them we're very serious about having, hearing your voice and what you have to say, instead of something at 6 o'clock where they have to go home and come back.
Do you want a few of us to figure this out and bring something back? Rather than just have a general kind of...
Well, if you would like the idea of pursuing your goals for the pathways, I think we might be able to come back with a recommendation for you to consider.
Let's start there. I think that's where this, and remember, we want, our big picture goal is the joy of learning, the career and college ready. I mean, we have big picture questions that we need to hear from kids.
Well, the beauty of this is that you can prepare. I mean, they can prepare if they know what the topic is, and if our teachers or administrators or a combination of the two are working with them on this, they can come with a rather structured conversation for you as well.
And we can give them questions ahead of time that they can even
That's
have
right.
discussion in classes or whatever that they could bring.
Exactly, and honestly, I think what we have seen when students, if we choose for the students to come to our board meetings, I think our students have acted very appropriate, and they have been very verbal, and I think it's a good, we don't want to intimidate them, but I think it's a good experience for them.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of young people who have opinions. Just ask them, right? That's what we haven't done, is to ask them.
Well, and that's part of the training. We talked about helping them understand leadership roles.
Absolutely.
And part of that experience is helping them understand how to express their opinion,
Yep.
and how to understand that sometimes someone might act on their opinion and sometimes they
interrupted.
may not.
So I won't do
But
it anymore.
putting and giving them experience with bigger picture thinking too, I think, is another one of those experiences that would be very helpful.
let's remind the student leaders over there that we welcome their regular appearance to give us updates at our board meetings. We haven't had one of those in a while, but we used to get regular
That's a good point,
updates,
too.
and having them come and talk about what was happening with student government, what was happening with upcoming events and everything else, and
Well, and maybe our leadership will cause some students to get involved, whereas they might not have gotten involved. So, or maybe our student councils will become stronger, or if there aren't student councils at the middle school level, or intermediate level, maybe that will prompt them to. I can see lots of positive things coming from this.
Just throwing this out too, the government classes used to require that the kids come to a meeting. And really we should use that to our advantage to, make sure that when that time comes, or talk to I'm not sure who teaches, Mr. Weir was one of the teachers before, maybe incorporate them that way.
Exactly. So
Encourage them to come to the work session meeting. If they're going to, they have
Right.
to come anyway. Encourage them to come to the one that's the work session and put them to work a little bit.
Right.
Well, and I think it was pretty much what Aaron was alluding to, that if we do this, that we have to be cautious of trust with our students.
Absolutely.
That we really are listening, and that we are acting on justifiable suggestion, because they will look for that and expect it.
Okay, so you are going to bring us
I'll bring you a recommendation to consider based on your goal around the pathways.
Okay, great.
They can also learn that decisions aren't easy, and that, and that there's no simple yes or no answer.
Well, and that sometimes you start out with one idea,
Right.
but then the end result is
Most
a
of the time.
completely different idea, but the conversation that took
Yep.
place throughout that was
Made it better.
valuable and is what helped come up with that
And they
great
could probably
end
teach
result.
us the Socratic method, right? We have discussion.
Okay, great. Okay, we are ready now for our action items.
And our first action item is to receive donations. And for the presentation of those, we turn to Mr. Coddington.
Thank you. Tonight we ask the board to accept the following donations. Hatish Kathira to Charles Elementary School for the donation to Mrs. Pearson's classroom. From Elstro Automotive, JAC Fitness, DBA of Anytime Fitness, Days Inn Richmond, Aluminum Brothers, Recovery Priority, Little Love Bug Daycare, Helping Hands Thrift Store, Braun Auto Builders, Charles Benner and Sons Plumbing, Newton's Auto Service, Hoppy Jewelers, Kyle Tom Real Estate Services, Wayne Dairy Products, Lions Insurance and Real Estate, Studebaker Buick Pontiac GMC, Richmond Toyota, First Merchants Corporation, A-House Tool and Engineering, Hager's Auto and Truck Service, Whitewater Regional Federal Credit Union, Hill Electric, Richmond Carpet Outlet, Schweitzer Insurance LLC, Coons Home Center, Nancy's Fancy Sewing Corner, Tom LLC, and Van Fleet Insurance, all to RHS Athletics to support the RHS cheer team. From Rod Weiss to RHS Athletics to the boys golf program, from Dot Foods to RHS Athletics to the girls soccer program, and Dream Makers Basketball to RHS Athletics for Richmond basketball program. We ask the board to accept these very generous donations of $1,800.
Dixie makes the motion.
Second.
Aaron seconds it. Comments, questions?
Thank you.
Everyone? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item would be a recommendation that the board adopt policy 1220, employment of the superintendent.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Pat Heine, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions?
I'd like to make this clear to people who may be watching that another superintendent's not being hired tonight.
I think that's a very good idea.
This is a reaction to legislation that was adopted by the state legislature last year that really removed many of the requirements for a superintendent to take a position in an Indiana school. This school board, if you go out and read the posting, has insisted that there be some requirements over and above what the state legislature has required before they approve the employment of a superintendent.
We value that. Okay. Have we no, that was questions and comments.
We've got a
Okay.
first and second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Our next item is a human resources recommendation, and I am recommending that Misty Hollis be placed on a paid administrative leave beginning September 6th through September 11th, returning to work on the 12th. And before I finish with that recommendation, I am recommending this, recognizing the unusual and very extensive work that she's done in preparation for our Chinese project. This has been much more than we anticipated, and she has put many, many days in. In a sense, this is compensation for much of the time that we never anticipated that she would be dedicating to this beyond work hours. I would like to suggest that this has been a pleasurable experience, but I also know it's been an exhausting experience. Placing the students was not easy to begin with, but also, and she had to have plans B and C and D in some cases. There have also been some situations where families simply could not provide the whole duration, and so she has had to react to that. But there have also been situations getting the teachers to China, getting the administrators to China and back, and meeting with the advisors, and also to prepare for the international, the I-20 status, for international students, approval with the federal government, and be certified and credentialed for that. So moving forward, we've learned many lessons, but going into this, I will tell you, we've had some unforeseen circumstances, and they have all been dealt very, very effectively and without question by Misty Hollis. This is in recognition of that.
So moved.
Pat Heine makes the motion, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? Get some rest. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, we are ready for our press conference. Questions?
No questions from me.
Okay. Uh-huh. And now we're ready for consent items.
The consent items include recommendation of approval for the August 14th board meeting and executive session minutes, and August 27th board meeting minutes. Recommendation by Human Resources, which includes an addendum as posted to the web. Recommendation to approve accounts payable. Recommendation for an ad change order, Richmond High School athletic field. Also an ad change order for the Richmond High School bleachers. Recommendation for career education agreements. Recommendation for filing of reports, assessment calendar, and then also a filing of reports, monthly financial. Those above items I recommend for your consent approval.
Okay, motion made by Kelly Baumgartner.
Second.
Seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments and questions?
Question, just one.
Okay.
For me. in regards to the bleachers, the change for the bleachers, could you explain that a little bit more, please?
Mr. Mays is coming to the podium.
Oh, he moved.
On the bleachers, on the home side, we added the steps to allow the team to exit onto the field from the Tiernan Center, where we shut the gates and then they went onto the field from the center rather than from the ends. And that was an extra 2 set of steps that we had to put in.
All right.
And it worked well.
Very effective.
It worked
Yes.
well.
I agree.
Actually, I'll answer another question on the change order for the field. We hit rock on the south end, and there was an extra for cutting that rock out to put the sewer in, and then we had to add some concrete at the goalpost at the south end because the rock was so shallow that we had to widen the base for the support. And those are the only 2 change orders that we had on the whole project.
You know, as magnificent last Friday was with the attendance and everything else, I only heard, when I was leaving, I was just inundated with one question from about 10 or 15 people, and that is, are we going to get more bleachers in the future on the visitor side? Because they're saying,
It just looks funny, you know, because it's different. Yeah.
It's the
But they
same-
weren't
yeah,
full.
it's the same amount of bleachers,
Yeah.
but they're not on both sides, yeah.
I love that we have a home side and a visitor side. I love that they have less places to sit. That's how it ought to be. It's how it is everywhere else we go.
Yeah.
that was all.
It was
That
a very
the only
exciting
question.
night, wasn't it? Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And now we are ready for our second public commentary. Anyone from our scanty audience? Okay, we're ready for follow-up old business. Pat?
As board members remember, and the public remembers, at our last board meeting, we discussed what we as a board wanted to do to have our voice heard in this statewide discussion about A to F grading. And if you recall, it was following on the heels of Fort Wayne's resolution. They were just going to ignore it. We talked a bit about what response we could make to indicate that we wanted something changed, but that we still recognize that we need to be held accountable and assessed. And so you assigned the task to Dixie and Aaron and myself, and we would like to present to the board a letter that we would like to send to all the important parties at the state level, Pence and the Department of Education, Glenda Ritz and the State Board of Education, as well as make it a guest commentary in the Palladium item. But before we do that, we want the board members to hear this, and Dixie has agreed graciously to read what we have written. So, Dixie?
Okay. It'll be dear and to whomever we're sending. Richmond Community Schools' vision by 2020, Richmond Community Schools will be the highest performing school system in East Central Indiana, is based on a series of comprehensive leadership values and high expectations. It is articulated clearly in our board goals that are found in our strategic plan. We are not afraid to be assessed and to be held accountable for that vision. Our students and community deserve nothing less. However, we would like our assessment to be as broad and comprehensive as our values. Currently, the A through F accountability system has flaws, presents an inaccurate picture of our schools, gives preference to low poverty schools, is difficult to understand or explain, and does a poor job of measuring true school performance. It has created tension, frustration, and skepticism. We support and encourage the Indiana School Board Association's legislative resolution that calls for the encouragement and improvement of a state accountability model that will clearly and accurately assess the education being delivered to students. The intent and purpose of assessment is to improve student learning and instruction. We encourage Dr. Glenda Ritz, Governor Mike Pence, the Indiana State Board of Education, and the legislature to reconsider the A through F grading system as it now stands. We want balanced assessment. We want to ensure that school systems are given credit for demographic challenges, socioeconomic challenges, language learning challenges, and the special needs of our children. We want to ensure that the state recognizes how well local school systems meet local goals as set by locally elected officials. We want as well fair and balanced state goals for our children. Each area of the state is unique, with unique needs, and the same is true of our children. That should be understood and recognized. We also want to emphasize that our children are so much more than test scores. We offer our services and would be willing to assist in the creation and development of a comprehensive and fair state accountability model for all the schools in our state. Respectfully submitted, Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees.
Very powerful. The only suggestion that I have is I think that that powerful letter should go to our teachers to let them know that we are taking a stand on that A through F grading. I just feel really strongly about that. I was also wondering if there were any other key legislators that letter should also go to. I realize we have representatives, our own representatives, but I'm thinking that it's so powerful that maybe there are other key legislators that it should go to. And then one other idea was to send a copy of it to Dr. Golars, since our conversation that we had yesterday.
Right. You could use the Senate and Representative Education Committees.
Sure, I would too.
I think would be the best if you want to sign that many letters. And
hey,
that's fine.
I mean,
it wouldn't be all that many. I mean, it's doable.
Okay.
I mean, how many letters have we signed to go to our students and so forth? So,
Linda, I would also recommend that we send them to the university and college presidents here in the state of Indiana as well.
Really?
They have a voice with legislators. They really do. Plus, it impacts, the type of student, positively or negatively that may be coming or may try to attend their schools.
Interesting.
Most of them are training teachers too. So.
Yeah.
you're saying not just locally, but statewide?
Right.
Your list is growing. Our list is growing.
70 some?
Yeah. Well, we can send to our teachers via email.
Sure.
So,
Well, as we worked on this, we really wanted to make sure we made a statement, but we also wanted people to know we're not afraid of being held accountable. I mean, that's really important. I mean, that's
It
what
is
our
important.
vision leads with,
Absolutely.
is that we are going to be the highest performing. And how are you going to tell that? Well, so we're not afraid to do that. So we aren't backing out of anything. But
no, and I think the letter states that very clearly, that we do want to be held accountable. Any other comments, or because I think that we need to take a vote of.
You need to support it or adopt it as your message going out.
I move to accept the letter as presented by Dixie or read by Dixie as representation of our board and our thoughts.
I'll second that motion.
And seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Now, any more comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And thank you to our writing committee.
I want to clarify something, because I thank Pat for including me. I agree to it, but with a phone mishap that I had, it dropping in water the other day, she was unable to get a hold of me. Therefore, the work that was done on that letter was done by Dixie and Pat. Thank you for
Well-
mentioning my name, but it was between the two of them.
We know that you were giving them vibes, so.
Underwater vibes.
Underwater.
You were blowing bubbles.
I wish.
If I were grading that letter, though, it would get an A.
Yes, yes, it was very
That's a big deal.
powerful. And I also want to report to you from our new board member orientation handbook committee, Jeff and Dixie and myself, that it is progressing, and we are in the giving input stage.
Waiting on Jeff.
We're waiting on Jeff, actually.
Jeff, you only have
Since we're
6
all
meetings
being
left. so
honest
you're
here.
ready.
But you should expect to get a draft of that, hopefully, early next week.
Sort of started.
And so hopefully we can be ready to roll with that, and we can use it on our newest school board member sitting in our audience, Susie Hively, and we'll just try it out on her and see how it works. So anyway, we are making progress on it.
She didn't know she was going to be elected to become a guinea pig right off the bat.
I think she probably pretty much has everything down ahead of time.
Okay, we are ready for superintendent and board reports, reflections, celebrations.
Well, some of our celebrations tonight have taken place regarding our Chinese students, but I would also like to celebrate all the students that we've had who have worked to make those visits really, really good. We've had some wonderful ambassadors, not just for Richmond Community Schools, but for Indiana and America here in our schools. I would also like to report, I think, hands down, the very best celebration I've ever seen in the form of any football game since I've been
Isn't
in
that
Richmond.
amazing?
Took place last Friday night. I thank the former players who came out and made that a memorable experience. I thank all of our school people, and especially Chad Bolzer, who has worked for weeks and weeks and weeks to make that special and for it to come off as it did. It was, for anybody who couldn't be there, one of the best experiences that I've seen here at Richmond. And I've been told, I'm thinking it was John Hitch who told me that he felt much the same way. Wasn't necessarily the biggest crowd he's ever seen at Leibolt Field, but it certainly was a memorable game
We had a
in his
good
opinion,
student
too.
section there, though. And it was a
great
beautiful night. It was exciting.
And we won.
And we won.
We won. I happened to be in the hallway today, and I ran into, almost literally, Nate Trawick. That's number 99, who fills up 2 or 3 holes on both the defensive and the... And he was just beaming. I just said, nice game. They had a great time, and they really appreciated all of the people who were there. So,
And it was really super cool after the game where he opened up the floodgates and all these little kids and grown-ups alike were running out on the field and getting their picture taken.
That was a good idea.
That was really,
Free
really neat.
T-shirts, everything. It
was
was
neat.
a lot of fun.
It was a We Are
Fun
Richmond night.
evening. Aaron?
I have a couple celebrations. The first one, not the least of which, is I had the opportunity to be greeted by a young man earlier today. He was a 10th grade student. We look for jewels sometimes in different places, and they're right in front of us. This young man was walking down the street. I was in my patrol car. He didn't know me, but he came up and he gave me a thumbs up, and he asked me how I was doing. He said that he had a great day. He had a great day at school. He learned a lot. I said, well, and as the conversation went on, he said, and I can guarantee you, I'll never be in the back of your police car, and I'm going to graduate on time. He didn't know I was a school board member.
Yeah.
And it was the way that he said that just really just sent goosebumps down my arm. So we have a lot of gems out there. Ray and I are going to go visit him and pay a special visit to him in class tomorrow. I've got to give resounding applause to our administration, especially the leadership at Westview, the teachers, and the students, in particular to the evacuation that occurred on Monday. We have a lot of fire drills that go on through our schools every day, every week. As one of the several police officers who were there, it was one of the most well-organized evacuations I've ever seen. And the thing about it was impromptu because it went against the plan that, hey, they had in place. Their evacuation site could not be used. Instead, they went to another location. And standing there watching the teachers and the administrators bringing those students out, about the loudest noise that I heard going from the school to the relocation area was the noise from the engine of my car. They were orderly. It could not have been done in a better manner. And I went to Westview today. I spoke with several of the classes, and I thanked them, the teachers as well as the aides, because, again, it was just picturesque of how something should be done in an orderly manner. So.
I would like to celebrate the 9th grade Academy Keystone teachers, Ms. Hogg, Ms. Jackson, Ms. Holliday, Ms. Rayburn, and Mr. Irwin. They do, as you may or may not know, a community service project, and all students are to participate. And as the 9th grade Academic Keystone team has thought and planned over the last 2 years, they came to the realization that they wanted community organizations to present possible community service activities. And those community service activities will take place on October 3rd and 4th, a Thursday and a Friday. And so I want to celebrate the team. I want to celebrate all the 9th grade students who were so attentive, and to celebrate the community partners who were there. The mayor, the city of Richmond, I'll forget somebody, Habitat for Humanity, COPE, Abilities, Sanitation Department. Yes, we're going to take care of pet poop in the sanitary drains, which I just thought was a riot. And the kid, yeah, you got the book. That's why I happened to mention that. Townsend Center. Who am I forgetting?
Minority Women's Health Coalition.
And the Park Department and Rock Solid Ministries. Sorry about that. But they were all there. They presented programs, and they spent the day there with our students. So it represents celebration of partners, celebration of the academy teachers, and celebration of our 9th grade students. And we need to pay attention to October 3rd and 4th, and I think some of us may need to volunteer sometime to go with them to do something. So that was a great celebration.
Dixie?
And I wanted to celebrate Brian, compliment him on an article he had in the paper this week about the Chinese visitation of students to Charles. I thought it was extremely well done. It also said volumes about our teachers, from the impression that the Chinese teachers had of ours, that they saw our teachers, that they actually teach from the heart. They have children as their top priority, and they make sure that they stick to that priority. And that really impressed me. And the article itself was well done, so I wanted to compliment him on that.
You might get a rose this week, Brian.
Anybody else? Mark?
Just very quickly, I think want to recognize and we focused on our 3rd grade academy, and that was a completion this year that we were above 90%. I know when I was employed, we had quite a discussion, the importance of 90% of our students being at grade level. Our teachers and students throughout the year, our own summer school programs that precede that and help kids grow in their reading skills. But very importantly, that last run at the end with our partnership with the Third Grade Academy, we were about 92%. So that's just something to brag about.
Absolutely.
We didn't say thank you to Mr. Josie when Rick was here, so we need to do that.
Rick is here.
Rick's still here.
You can
When
pass
Rick
that
was
along.
up front. How about that? I didn't want to forget Mr. Josie as a very important partner in that endeavor.
Yes, indeed. And we value your partnership. Thank you again. Okay, anything else for the good of the cause? We are adjourned.